Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the panner node inside Unreal Engine's material editor. So panners are really good for textures that have to move in a repeating fashion, like a waterfall or a conveyor belt or some kind of beam. So let's check it out. So right click and do new material here. I'll call it panner. I'm just going to go into the graph here. And the first thing we need is a texture to pan. So I don't really have anything right now, so I'm going to make up something in Photoshop. This is just a 256 by 256 pixel image. So if you go to image size, you'll see pixels here and 256. Okay, this gives us enough range to play with. I'm just going to go to the fill bucket, hold down and go the gradient tool. And I'll just use this reflect one with grayscale and just go from about halfway up. Hold down shift so it stays like a straight line and almost to the end, and we get this nice bar, right? Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's good enough. Let's export this as PNG, and I'm just going to call this bar. Go back into Unreal and import our bar. I'm just going to drag that in here, and that's all good. Let's just drag this into base color and preview it on a cube, right? So we've got our bar and nothing happening just yet. So you can see here there is something called UVs. This is basically default UVs, 0 down here, 1 up here, and if we move these around, we'll move the UVs, right? So in order to move UVs, you need something called texture coordinate, so TEX, this one, right? Texture coordinate, or text coord as it looks here, and if you're searching for it, it's better to look for that name text coord, right? Okay, so we plug this in and we get exactly the same because this holds the UV type of algorithm, right? This value here, this value here for the different channels. Now if you look at this, just to break it down, I'm just going to do a component mask so we can see what happens. Okay, I'm going to turn off everything apart from R, so you can see it's a gradient, so 0 to 1 for the first vector, right? And then if you look at the green channel, it's 0 at the top to 1 going down the way, okay, for the second vector. The other vectors don't do anything, so this is just your UVs. So you can imagine if we were to add a value to any of these, right, and if I put in a single value, it's going to add to both vectors, the X and Y, or the R and G, if you want to look at it that way. And I was putting a value of 0.5. I'm going to add that to the original text coordinate and then plug that in here. You'll see that I've shifted this about, right? I've shifted it diagonally because I'm affecting both vectors at the same time, but we don't really see it because there's no difference horizontally to this texture. Okay, but it is moving, right? If I do 0.25, you can see it's shifted it a bit different. This just needs to update. We can start previewing the node like this, and we just see that information. Okay, we're not seeing it actually update here. I guess we could do a live update, real-time nodes, and sometimes, there we go. Okay. So now it will change, we'll see it different here, we'll see it different there. If I do 0.1, and it's all looking different. Now you can see kind of, as I increase this value, I'm actually panning it. But how do I increase this value within the shader? Well, I can use something called time, right? And time just ticks away constantly, so it was 0, 1, 2, and it's got fractions. And actually, what I'm putting into here is fractions. So if I get the fraction of time, just the decimal point elements, it's always going to be less than 1, right? It's always going to be like 0.1, 0.2, all the way up to 0.8, 0.9. Then it kind of goes back to 0.1 again, right? Regardless of what happens to the actual number, we're just going to get the fraction side of it. So if you type in frac, we're just getting that decimal value, and we put that in there. So now what we'll get is this panning texture. Now there is built-in panning. There's one called Panner, which basically does the same thing. There's time, okay, and to get speed, we're just going to multiply these together, right? So you can use a panner if you want. Same idea. In fact, if I put the speed of 0.2 into there and plug this in, will it work? There you go. So it just works with that. We don't have to have all these, but this shows you how that works, right? This is actually kind of its own graph internally. It's a bit of code that does this, so it's probably a bit more efficient. Okay, but here we can put our time, so 0.5, and now this moves faster, right? Minus 0.6. It's going to go down the way. And remember that lerp node that we could use, the lerp node from the previous video, we could use that to define these colors because we've just got this black and white texture, right? Let's just stop previewing this. Okay, and because this is a black and white texture, this can actually drive our alpha value of our lerp, right? Just put whatever channel you want in there. Okay, and then we can define two colors. So if this was a kind of stylized waterfall, I'm going to do dark blue, copy that and do like a light blue, like that, and plug these in here. And we're basically just going to replace, we're just replacing the darker values with this, A, and the lighter values with this for B. Okay, now we get a nice sort of stylized waterfall effect. If we go back to Photoshop and do something more interesting with this, let's get the smudge brush. That's a bit strong. A soft brush, and maybe if you've got a Wacom tablet or a drawing tablet, then this will be a bit easier. Okay, I just have to plug mine in. There we go. And it does take a little second. Let's just calm it down a bit and yeah, do something like this. I'm just smudging the tones around with different values. Okay, I'm just going to save. I'll do export, quick export. It seems to be the fastest. I'm just going to water gradient. Okay, and then I'm going to import that. And let's drag this one in instead. And put the coordinate here and the result in there. And then this one's no longer used. And we get a bit of a nicer effect. Right, it's a bit static is the only thing I'd say. So what if we could mix a couple of these? Right, I'm going to take a copy of that. And I'm going to copy this one, right, but I'm going to change the speed a little bit to 0.5, okay, and I'll change the X speed as well to 0.1, just so we get a bit of horizontal movement. I'm going to plug that in, right, and I want to mix these two together. I could add them, but I could also lerp them, right, lerp is like mixing, so I'll put that in there, and let's just give it 0.5, it's already done that by default. That's a perfect mix between the two, and if we preview this we can see it's doing this kind of interesting shifting, right? It's giving us nice values. So let's plug this into the alpha for that, and now we've got something a bit more interesting. Now it has faded a bit because the colors are getting mixed a little, so if you want you can boost this. To boost it you can use add to add the values together, right, and that will give you a bit more, and then you could then multiply it to kind of create contrast, right? You see that's more contrasted, then bring that in there. It's a good idea to use saturate as well, just in case some of these colors end up out of range when it's making this. So right click and use saturate. That will keep the the range within 0 to 1, which this needs. Right, nice little node. So we can see how that looks there. I actually prefer the, okay, yeah, you can see it's in some cases it's mixing completely over itself. I don't know, let's just put that one in there to see if it looks better, kind of softer. Okay, let's go with that, bit of a better range. And then if you want, you can put some of that into the emissive color as well. Let's just put it straight into the emissive color. You see it looks much brighter, but it's self-lit, it's very cartoony. Right, if you're going to use emissive color, I recommend just multiply it, the color that we're getting, with a little value, so 0.1, if you are using like a self-lit effect, not an emissive material or a fake light source or something. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. The only thing you need to make sure of now is when you make your objects that your UVs are up and down on your UV sheet so that this has the same effect. So for example, if I put that on there, that works, but you can see the UVs for this cap is actually up and down is this way. Okay, and a cube as well, if we do it on that, you'll see the UVs go up and down around the sides, which makes it work, but one of the, you know, the top and bottom doesn't work so well. So if this was going to be a waterfall, I guess you would use this and this side, and then maybe chamfer or bevel those edges a bit. So if you were also going to use like this on this side like that, you can see it doesn't work. You'd want it to roll round the way, then you would just change a few of these properties. One, you would rotate your texture to be 90 degrees, right, so it's going the other way, and you would change the coordinates. You wouldn't do the speed on Y, you would do your speed on X, so it's going the other way, and that would look right for this particular cylinder. But as long as you do your UVs the right way, this won't be a problem. Just bear in mind they need to be vertical. Okay, so that's pretty much it for stylized waterfall. You can add normal maps and water ripples and things on top of it using the same method. In fact, if you are going to blend normals, there is a blend normal node, and it should be called angle corrected normal blend. Let's just type in normal. Blend angle corrected normals, right? That's the node you want. You would have your normal map 1 and your normal map 2 that you want to mix together. Not quite the same as lerp, but I think lerp would also be good enough. Just this one corrects things and it will be a better result. It does fix a few things internally. You can see it's doing some interesting things here to correct them. Okay, so that being said, we could generate a normal map from this. If we go online and we go to a site called CPetri normal map, this one, we can actually drag or find our water gradient, and it will make an interesting normal map from it. It is a bit heavy. Just make sure you turn off displacement, turn off rotation, you can see it, and play with these values until it's not as wild as what you see there. We just want it to be enough, just a little bit, so it catches the light. It's still quite kind of strong in the middle the way I've made it. Okay, we don't necessarily need a specular map for this, but I just want to put this in just to show you some of the features of this. And we'll just go back to normal and get our normal map. Let's push the strength a bit more and then download it. Okay, we've got a normal map there, so back into Unreal Engine. I'm going to import that texture and bring it in here. And if we want to mix these two similarly, just going to make a copy, and I'll use the same panel for each of these. So I'll just copy node to that one, and this one to this one, and then mix these together like that, and then put this into normal map. Okay, so now we've got, it's hard to see it, but we've got a little bit of a bump to this. In fact, I need to invert the green channel, because the way I made this, just click that one and save. Right, and now it just needs a little bit of gloss or roughness control, so I'll just do S and click and call this roughness. Let's just make it 0. Save. And now we have a kind of watery effect. Let's get rid of this one. Okay, it's a little bit fast, so I'm just going to slow down these two. Let's do minus 0.25. And this one 0.33, and save it. And these aren't exposed, there's no exposed values in here to control it, but since I'm just making this one once as a demonstration, you should know how to create scalars and plug them in. So for example, I could do time 1, time 2, speed 1, speed 2 as scalars. Hold down S and click, plug them in, and they'll show in a material instance. Okay, so it's quite nice on the side there, and you can imagine that being applied to your meshes. If you're obviously going to put this on a ground plane, it's going to be slightly different. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. Recommend getting a tileable water texture normal, something a bit like this. That's a little bit strong, but you can find a few of these and just mix them up this way. So bring in the two normal maps, mix them together, apply it into normal map, give it the color you want, and all the other stuff like that, and do your little panels on them so they mix and overlap and do different values for each. So for example, positive 0.1 there and minus 0.22 here, so they'll shift over each other more. In fact, that one isn't too bad, just because this banding is quite strong. It doesn't work so well for top down, but hey, it might do. You can also tile the texture as well, so you've got this coordinate going into these. So remember the UV coordinate or text that we got at the start of this tutorial. You can multiply this by a vector 2 and say that you want it to be tiled more on one than the other. Right, so if I put that into here, and save it, we now have extra tiling on one of those sides. So if I do 4 and save, we're now 4 times down the way for the texture. Right, and we want to keep the whole numbers. If I do 0.1 here, we'll probably get some ripping or splitting. Alright, it just stretches so much. Let's do 2 and 4. Right, let's do a fraction just to show you what happens. 1.5. Should get some sort of weird line. Okay, it's not so easy to see. I might be overthinking it, but there you go. That's how you can mix up your water normals. We'll do some tiling on them, mix the tiling up, mix how they shift, and yeah, I hope you learned a lot from this, and definitely experiment a bit so you understand it for yourself. It does take a while to get your head used to these kind of ways of thinking. And thanks for watching this tutorial. Hope it's useful. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.